My name is Alyssa Eisner Henkin. I love being a book coach. I love being that best friend and cheerleader who can read a manuscript, find out what's great about it, talk to the author, figure out where the author's vision wants to take it, and help that person go along the road of getting it ready for publication and submission. I think writing is a very solitary process, and I think there's huge benefit to having someone who's in your world, who knows your characters, who understands your motivation, and can look at that and help you get that much further along towards publication. My specialties revolve around children's books. I've worked in the business for many years, 17 as a literary agent and 7 before that as a children's book editor. So I'm very familiar with all sides of the process. In addition to my children's book work, I'm working on several rom-coms. I've done romance over the years. Women's fiction and upmarket fiction are big interests of mine because I read really widely in those genres. A bit less skilled at sci-fi and high fantasy. I'm not the best specialist in those genres, but most other genres, I'm really able to look at something critically from that industry perspective, but also from the writing perspective. Is the plot here? Is the voice here? Are the characters here? Is it developed or does it need to be developed further? In the current climate, editors have less time to edit than they did. When I first started as an agent 17 years ago, if the voice was there, an editor would typically make an offer on a project and would be able to do the heavy lifting with the author. Now I'm seeing that less and less. Editors wear a lot of hats. They go to meetings, they sell the book in house. They still do edits, but they're not looking to do the big conceptual, heavy lifting, plot shifting kind of edits. And in terms of hooking an agent, also the cleaner your manuscript is, plotting and tightness is huge. Voice is something that is very subjective, so people either are into it or they're not. But I do think from a commercial standpoint, getting that pace nice and sharp and just everything moving quickly, and developing characters elegantly is something that is a huge asset. And when you bring a project like that to an agent and an agent can bring that to an editor, not only does it make for a faster sale, but it often makes for a bigger sale because then you have the ability to get multiple editors interested and you can have auctions and preemptive situations. So you're investing some on yourself in the early stages, but the hope would be that it would pay off in the end and that you would make it back and then some for your investment. Approach to working with writers really involves that person's personality. And I always tell people as a literary agent or a book coach, you're kind of like a dentist or a hairdresser. Your job is to kind of really do what serves your client. So I wear many hats and I'm happy to adapt to whatever people ask of me. I tend to be very high energy and I very much have a coach personality. So I'm always looking to build people up on that emotional level because I feel like leaving the writing out of it for a second. Writing is a really solitary habit. And the writers that I've worked with over the years have really liked just the opportunity to have someone who's kind of in the world of their characters and their stories, who gets them on that level. So I always just try to immerse myself in the world of the writer's world so I can really vibe with them and uplift them. But at the same point, I'm very straightforward and I'm very candid. So if someone has a world that's beautifully developed, but the pace is slow, or if the pace is great, but the story doesn't feel in step with the market, and I do see all the deals that are made every day, not only in the United States, but internationally, I have access to all these databases. So I just have a lot of information in my head about the trends and the themes that editors seem to be looking for. So again, if somebody wants me to focus specifically on plot, I can do that. If somebody is newer and wants more of a market overview, I can do that. I can be whatever the client needs me to be, but I'm very much a cheerleader and I'm very much an optimist, but I'm also candid. So people who work with me can expect that I will always be respectful, but I will tell the truth. If something lacks commercial value, I always try to find a way to say, well, can we stick with what you really love, but make it more commercial by doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not in the business of saying trash the whole thing, but I'm always looking to find the best possible outcome for the project that the writer wants to work on. Because you're not a machine, you're a human being. So you want to be creating something that reflects you and who you are, but you also want that to have the best chance of selling in the overall climate. And it's a very competitive climate at that. And this is the type of thing that it is what you make it. So if a writer is very prolific and has all the pages or half the pages, the hope would be by the end of the coaching program, you would have a really fully revised packet and then are that much closer to being ready to submit to agents and editors and start making deals. That being said, if you're a newer writer, if you have something that is kind of fluid and you're not 100% sure on the approach, the takeaway for that person might be, I don't have a fully finished book at the end of my session, but I have a vision, I have an outline, I have a plan for where I'm going so I can get to that point. Many of the writers that I work with as an agent, it's not uncommon to do 4 or 5 different drafts of a book before it goes on submission. So I'm really of the belief that each draft is going to be messy, it's going to be confusing, it's going to be a lot. There are times that writers tear their hair out because it's just so all encompassing. But again, if you can kind of not look at it that in 6 weeks I'm going to go from A to Z, but look at it more that in 6 weeks I'm going to go from A to D, and then the next time I'm going to go from D to F, and ultimately kind of get there through the process, I think that's helpful because a lot of it really just depends on where the writer is when the writer starts the journey. And I just try to advance it that much further on the, kind of um, the line of, submission readiness, I guess you'd say.